filling here at the Trustmark on SuperTalk Mississippi on the Element Wealth Studios. I'm very excited to have in studio Andy Berry, who is the Executive Director of the Mississippi Beef Council. Welcome.
Good morning. Good to be here. Thank you.
It's good to have you. And there's just a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on outside of just grocery prices. It seems like the price of everything has gone up, but the price of meat has significantly increased under the Biden administration. And, you know, I feel like there's a lot of parallels. We started this program talking to a friend of mine who represents energy workers. And, you know, similar to the meat industry, I felt like this administration, because a variety of special interest groups have really been pushing policies that have a range of negative consequences to energy producers' ability to produce, and for cattlemen and the entire industry, including the processors' ability to produce meat in the way that we've been accustomed to over, I would say throughout recent history. Now, could you walk us through some of the reasons that the price is going up, and especially talk through the point, okay, if the cost of steak is going up at the grocery store, does this mean that the profits, so to speak, of our cattlemen is also going up as well?
Well, that's an easy one to start off with. The answer is no. It is not. It's actually inversely related. Typically, as the price of beef goes up, we've seen over the last few years that the price that our cattle producers, and I'm a cattle producer as well back home on my spare time, the price that we're getting is not related to the beef market. And so that's a big policy issue within our industry that we've been trying to work through, is to figure out how we can get that value back that we're seeing of box beef prices. And right now, we're seeing a 15.5% increase in beef prices since this time last year.
Wow. You
know, and there's some inflation. Obviously, we've got inflation of around, 7%, I believe, but that's just half of that. So, you know, when you have four major companies, there's a consolidated meatpacking sector industry in our country here. There's four big companies that control about 85% of the beef. Now, that's in how they supply it, and that's in how they sell it to the consumers. So they control both ends. They control what they're paying for the live cattle. They also are controlling the speed of production at which they pump the beef out of those plants to what supplies back to our consumers across the country. So we've got a problem there when we've allowed in our country to get a monopoly in the beef packing sector. You know, and I'll give President Biden and his administration a small sliver of credit. They've recognized this, but they've done so, I think, mainly it's been an easy target for them to point to say, hey, here's the issue over here. It's not anything that we've done from our policies, but it's from these four main companies. Now, we can point to several things right off the bat that we can go back to this administration that's caused problems for our industry. You know, back during the campaign, Vice President Kamala Harris all but talked about a war on red meat, wanting to do away with red meat in our diets, to do away with our industry. They point to us as not being sustainable, not being climate friendly, which is completely opposite of the actual fact in this country. There is no better stewards of our land, water, and resources in America than cattle producers. They're dependent upon that. Their cattle do not grow. They do not make money without taking care of their land. And for a vast section of this country, when you get out into the western states, that's the only commercial viable use is to graze cattle. And so we're seeing right now this 30 by 30 initiative by the Biden administration, where they want to conserve 30% of the United States land and water by the year 2030, which is getting closer every day. So what that's going to do is restrict grazing, restrict the use of water for crops or for livestock for the vast majority of this country. Now, a lot of this is going to be out west, and it doesn't directly affect our producers here in Mississippi, but it affects our industry.
Yeah, certainly.
And so it's just an unfair war on our industry across this country based on some green goals that our administration has right now. And you know, and like I said, we are the original climate conservators. We're sustainable in what we do. We take care of our land and our resources. If not, we won't be in business next year.
Well, your entire livelihood is tied to your ability to respectfully and appropriately use natural resources. That's something, back in the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, we really look to farmers as key partners in pushing a lot of environmental policies because they're the original environmentalists, really.
Absolutely.
Before that was a trendy word.
Absolutely, because, cattle are the only, commercially viable protein source that can take grass. We spend a lot of money in this country cutting grass.
That's true. That's true. I can personally attest to that.
They're the only protein source that can take grass and turn it to a highly valuable and palatable protein source for you and I to consume to feed our bodies.
Yeah.
They do that. That's their four-stomach setup. Their rumens are designed by God to do that, to be a harvester of grass, turn it into high-value protein for us to consume.
There's nothing more environmental than taking a waste stream and turning it into something that is good and valuable for the broader public.
They're upcycling the grass.
Yeah.
I mean, we always picked about Les Miles when he was at Les Miles at LSU. He would eat grass, and everybody liked to pick on him about that. But cattle take that grass. They actually turn it into something good rather than Les Miles jokes on the sideline there.
Yeah. Maybe that's not the most sustainable use, but certainly the cows doing what God designed them to do.
Do a better job than Les Miles did, for sure.
I concur with you there. Now, back on the meat packing side of it, that aspect of the industry, and I admit you're a producer, so maybe you're not in the best position, but how is it that we got to where there's only 4? I mean, that to me is mind-boggling. It seems like there used to be a lot of small mom and pop, if I may say so, meat processors, and now there's only 4 in the entire U.S.
Well, and you couple that too, Andy, with one of those is a Brazilian-owned company.
Interesting.
The other is a majority China-owned company. So you're down to 2 who have a major stake of U.S. ownership. It's just been through consolidation, through efficiencies in our industry that as plants got outdated. Some of that was government regulations and not being able to upgrade or to build new plants. And so these bigger companies just cannibalize the rest of the industry to where they've got the 80 to 85% of the capacity control within those 4 companies.
The parallels between what's happening in the energy industry and a lot of the agricultural producers, it's really uncanny, the fact that you have government regulations coming down, making the cost of engaging in that marketplace so expensive that the mid-sized to small-sized entities can't continue to exist, and they get gobbled up by the big guys. And it seems alarming that 2 of the main 4 are international companies, and especially in the world we're in now, where we've got to make sure all of our entities that are vital to the well-being of Americans, be it energy security or food security, are rooted here in the United States. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just a no-brainer to me. But I
agree.
This has happened over the course of 20 or 30 years that we've allowed this to happen. 10 years ago, it would have been the Big 5. Now it's the Big 4. And just, they can control the market to where if you've got a startup that comes in, a regional packer, smaller packer, they can price them out of business. And you follow that we have ups and downs in the inventory cycle of cattle in this country. So right now we're kind of overstocked of cattle. And so there's no incentive for those packers to pay more because they've got plenty to kill. They've got plenty to process. In a few years, we're going to see some numbers change to where that number will get back in the cattleman side. But right now, we're kind of taking it on the chin.
You really are. Look, we're quickly running out of time, which is always surprising to me. But is there anything going on legislatively to try and either encourage competition or to shore up the position of the cattlemen and women to get through this the problems that they're facing right now?
There's a couple of bills. Senator Hyde-Smith is original co-sponsor on a bill by Senator Fishley and Grassley that would deal with how those packing companies source their cattle, make them bid more competitively on a larger scale than what they currently do. So we're excited about that. We certainly support her and that bill that Grassley and Fisher have out there. There's some other things moving. There's a cattle contract library that just gives an index of what what the prices are, how many they were, what type they are. That's going to be in this omnibus package that's just rolled out here, announced today.
So there's good work going on. There is light at the end of this tunnel.
We hope.
Yeah, well, I hope as well, for the sake of what y'all do, and then also the sake for the American consumers who we love our meat, despite what the greenies are trying to push out there.
We appreciate everybody's support, and we think we produce a great product. Our farmers do a great job producing a healthy, sustainable product right here in Mississippi.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that. Well, Andy Berry, thank you so much for being here. Executive Director of the Mississippi Beef Council. All right, for our listeners, stay tuned. We have much more after the break.